Now, one of the big stories this week is the Reserve Bank attaching the assets linked to the former CEO of Steinhoff, Markus Jooste, despite the near collapse of Steinhoff shares in December 2017 and evidence pointing to financial manipulation and fraud. Jooste has not faced criminal charges until now. In its application for seizure, the bank says he may have flouted exchange control regulations. Well, in 2018, Jooste was called to testify before a joint sitting of 3 parliamentary committees, and there he denied any wrongdoing. The former chair of the Standing Committee on Public Accounts, Themba Godi, said at the time, "We are none the wiser." Well, Themba Godi joining us now. It's great to have you with us, as always, Mr. Godi. What was that 2018, those hearings in your mind, when you heard the news of the Reserve Bank attaching assets this week?
Look, Francis, well, I am happy that at least something is being done, albeit it is done almost 5 years after the fact. And even now, the Reserve Bank is speaking in very tentative terms, saying he might have, flouted exchange control regulations. But nonetheless, it is an act. I think the public and the media has kept the issue on the spotlight. And it is good that at least something is being done, albeit belated.
Parliament tried to do something. You wanted to get to the bottom of what happened, but you said we are none the wiser. Do you believe that Markus Jooste lied to you, Finish and Klaar?
Well, what happened at that time was that it was SCOPA that fought very hard to get Steinhoff and Markus Jooste to appear. The other committees, to be honest, were taking the line that Steinhoff is a private matter. Let's leave it to state regulators to deal with it. And so when Markus Jooste appeared in Parliament, his lawyers made a deal with Parliament, which stopped us from asking certain questions, which, made us none the wiser after the hearings that we've had. So, yeah, it is good that something has been done, but if we look back, I think that Parliament missed an opportunity because in my view, Parliament is a very narrow interpretation of its mandate, which is that it must pass legislation and oversee only the executive. But when it comes to issues that have an impact on the general public and the catastrophic flouting of the laws that we pass by private companies, Parliament seemed to be less interested. And I think that is what hamstrung us a bit back in 2018.
If your hands weren't tied, do you think you would have got much more? Because even Christo Visser, dollar billionaire, one of the most well-known business people, says this is so complex to understand. German investigators are looking at it. You need financial people to unravel alleged fraud that took place over years.
Yeah, no. You recall, Francis, that the team that I had in SCOPA, we're a band of brothers and sisters who really would crack open even a granite, stone. We would have cracked them open because remember, Parliament has the right and the powers to call anyone to appear before it, to provide information and to provide documents. So it's not for lack of legal authorities than what I've just explained. Look, if you look at the Tongaat Sugar Company case, it is the same thing. It is all about overstating equity, that is the value of a company after liabilities. And Steinhoff inflated its profits by about 116 billion. So it's all about accounting malpractices. The question becomes who were involved, at what point did they start to mislead the public? And then you look at all the people who were involved. I mean, there was and there still is one instance of a transaction, I think it's about 250 million, where the Hawks have the evidence. And at some point they promised us that maybe they should just prosecute him on that one. And as they investigate and find other instances, they will just add the charges, so that the case must not be seen to be frozen. But they have not acted. So
that's what they were saying in 2018.
That's what they were saying in 2018.
Are you stunned that in 2022 there have been no charges? He hasn't been arrested, and this would be a lesser charge anyway. We're not talking about fraud. We're talking about exchange control regulations.
No, very true. You will recall, Francis, that last year in May, I led a march to the NPA offices demanding that there should be movement on these criminal investigations. This was after the NPA had accepted about 30 million rands from Steinhoff to help them investigate Jooste. I mean, after 5 years, even if I was slow in my mind, surely I would have done a lot to cover my tracks. So my thinking from where I'm seated is that the man is given so much time that by the time they want to act, it might just be too late to be able to connect the dots, so to speak.
Did you get any response? And what you're talking about is that Steinhoff actually paid for a PwC report. I don't understand why Steinhoff itself has not made that full report public, or has been reluctant over time to do so, but it does say that there was financial manipulation, fictitious transactions. It can't get worse than that. So surely that's a basis for something.
But exactly my point, that there is nothing complicated about this criminality. It's just that even when we had our meetings in 2018, Steinhoff was very conservative with information, very reluctant to disclose information. And what they did, they appointed PwC to investigate on their behalf. PwC did, gave them a report. Then they came around and said to NPA, well, we're going to give PwC 30 million rands to now investigate on your behalf, instead of giving the NPA the PwC report and use it as a basis for investigation or prosecution. So that's why I'm saying the whole thing, especially from the NPA and the Hawk side, it appears like they're dragging their feet. Even the Reserve Bank, like I said, they say Jooste might have contravened exchange controls, which means it is still a contested position 5 years down the line. I think that when we say we're fighting corruption and we're only going after the flies who flouted tender regulations, but when you have the biggest scandal, corruption scandal in the history of our country, we seem not to be able to make any more.
When you wrote to the NPA, was there any response, any justification for the delay?
Well, firstly, we marched to the NPA, gave them a memorandum, and their senior officials who took the memorandum, promised us that they were going to respond, because we're not only saying prosecute the guy, but we're also saying, look, you need to avoid conflict of interest, where the people you're supposed to investigate are giving you money to investigate them. They have not. We have made follow-ups. They have not responded. And we appreciated the fact that we're taking this to the public domain, and that we gave them an opportunity to prove to the public that they are not serious about this matter. And so if we hear them making noise about fighting corruption and acting without fear, favor, or prejudice, it's just hollow talk, because here is the acid test, and they seem to be failing it.
All right, thank you very much. Former SCOPA Chair, Themba Godi.